Our first story begins with a young girl named Jane, better known to the world as Nightbirde. The stage lights dimmed. The room went still. There was something fragile yet powerful about her presence. A quiet glow, a smile soft enough to fill the massive theater, and a voice that hinted she had lived through storms most could never imagine. When Simon Cowell asked her who she was and where she came from, she answered with gentle confidence. But when he asked what she did for a living, she smiled and told him she had been dealing with cancer multiple times, and that at one point, she had only a small percentage chance of surviving. The audience gasped as she said it so calmly, so peacefully. But what pierced Simon the most was when she added, with that small, radiant smile, that she didn't want her story to be defined only by the bad things. Then the music started. She began singing her original song, "It's Okay." A simple title, yet so heavy with meaning. Her voice was airy, delicate, haunting, and heartbreakingly beautiful. Every lyric sounded like a diary entry from someone fighting for her life, someone who refused to give up, someone choosing hope even in darkness. It's okay. It's okay. See, the world is not always right. As she sang, the theater transformed. People stopped breathing. Her voice wrapped around every heart like a warm, fragile thread. Simon stared, motionless, his face softened, eyes glistening. When she finished, the audience erupted, not just in applause, but in emotion. Simon didn't speak for a moment. He took a deep breath and looked at her like he was witnessing something more than just a performance, something spiritual, something human. And then, slowly, he said the words that brought tears to millions around the world. "I'm not giving you a yes. I'm giving you something else." He slammed the golden buzzer, sending Nightbirde into a shower of gold, and she looked up with her arms open, bathed in the golden light. Simon stood up as if the weight of the world had suddenly lifted. But behind his smile, behind the gold falling around her, you could see his eyes, wet, emotional, and full of deep respect. Nightbirde's message wasn't just about music. It was about living. It was about choosing joy even when life breaks you. And that performance remains one of the rare times Simon Cowell let his guard down, and truly cried. Our next story takes us to a performance filled with nostalgia, innocence, and pure heart. The moment a young boy named Calum Courtney walked on stage with a small, shy smile, hands slightly shaking, eyes full of dreams. Calum was only 10 years old when he auditioned. He had a gentle confidence, but he also had a vulnerability that made the judges instantly adore him. His family later revealed he had mild autism, which sometimes made social situations overwhelming. But when he stepped onto the stage, there was no fear. Only passion. He told the judges he would sing Who's Lovin' You by the Jackson 5, a bold choice, especially for someone his age. The audience leaned in. The judges exchanged surprised looks. But Simon, he leaned forward, his interest suddenly sparked. The music started, and then came a voice that no one saw coming. Rich, soulful, pure. A voice that carried every ounce of emotion from a young heart that knew how to feel deeply. Calum sang with a maturity far beyond his years, hitting notes with effortless control, delivering runs with natural instinct, and pouring his heart into every word. As he sang, the camera cut to his family backstage, his mother covering her mouth with shaking hands, tears already forming. His little brother jumping with excitement. The entire room was hooked. When Calum finished, the theater exploded into applause. People stood, cheering, celebrating this little boy who had just delivered a powerhouse performance. Simon looked at him, and for a moment, he didn't speak. His eyes softened, his voice lowered, and then he told Calum something that every child dreams of hearing. "You have an amazing voice. But more importantly, you have an amazing heart." The gentleness in Simon's expression was unmistakable. He wasn't just judging. He wasn't just impressed. He was touched. And when Calum's family ran onto the stage to hug him, even Simon looked down, blinking faster than usual, one of those subtle moments where emotion leaks through the cracks. He later said that performances like Calum's remind him why he started doing talent shows in the first place. Moments that celebrate raw, real, heartfelt artistry. From here, our journey moves to one of the most devastatingly emotional auditions ever witnessed on television, an audition that didn't just make Simon emotional, it shattered him. This is the story of 14-year-old Courtney Hadwin from AGT, the champions in her deeply touching return to the stage. But not the performance you might be thinking of, not the powerful, explosive rock performance she became famous for. No, this was a softer moment. A vulnerable one. Courtney returned with a tribute performance dedicated to someone she had lost. Someone who had believed in her dream before the world even knew her name. The song she chose carried memories and pain far beyond her young age. As she stood on stage, she was quieter than usual. No wild energy, no explosive presence, just a teenage girl fighting to keep her emotions together. She began to sing. Her voice, usually fierce and electric, came out fragile, trembling with emotion. Every lyric felt like a message, like she was speaking directly to the person she had lost. And for the first time, the audience saw a completely different side of her. Not the powerhouse rocker, but a girl with a broken heart. Simon watched her closely, not blinking, his hand resting against his lips. Halfway through, as her voice broke slightly, Simon swallowed hard. His eyes softened. He nodded gently as if telling her, "Keep going, you're doing beautifully." When she finished, the audience was silent for a moment, not because they didn't love it, but because they were emotionally stunned. Then, like a wave, applause filled the room. Simon leaned forward and spoke in a quieter voice than usual. "That performance was absolutely beautiful. And I know that wasn't easy for you." His voice cracked ever so slightly. And in that small break, that moment where he paused to gather himself, you could see the full emotional weight he felt. It wasn't just admiration, it was empathy. Because sometimes, even the strongest performances aren't the loudest ones. Sometimes, the ones that hit the hardest are the quiet, fragile, heartbreakingly honest ones. And now, we arrive at a moment so emotional that it has been replayed millions of times. A moment that transformed grief into music and left Simon visibly shaken. This is the story of a father who stepped on stage holding the memory of his son in his heart. His name was Michael Ketterer, a pediatric nurse, a father of 6, many of them adopted, and a man whose life was built on compassion. But behind his warm smile and gentle voice, he carried an unimaginable pain. Before he even began singing, he told the judges about the journey of raising children who came from broken homes, children who had experienced trauma, fear, and abandonment. His voice trembled slightly when he talked about wanting to be the father they never had. The audience listened, silent and emotional. Then he sang. Michael performed a soulful, powerful rendition of a song filled with longing and hope. His voice wasn't perfect, but it was real, raw, overflowing with heart. Every word sounded like a prayer. Every note sounded like a father speaking to his children. Halfway through the performance, The camera cut to Simon, the man known around the world for being tough, blunt, and unshakable. But in that moment, he broke. His eyes were wet, his expression softened into a look of deep empathy. He pressed his hand against his chest. His lips parted ever so slightly, and for a moment, it felt like he might cry. When the song ended, the audience roared. Michael looked overwhelmed. His children backstage jumped and hugged each other, screaming with joy. Simon breathed deeply and spoke slowly. "When I hear stories like yours, when I hear voices like yours, it reminds me why I do this." His voice cracked. He looked down, then back up at Michael. "You're a really, really special person." Then, without waiting another second, Simon slammed the golden buzzer. The gold confetti fell, and Simon actually stood up to hug him, something he almost never does. It remains one of the most emotional golden buzzer moments in AGT history. And one of the times Simon couldn't hide the tears forming in his eyes. Finally, we reach a performance that pulled at Simon's heart in a way few ever have. A performance delivered by someone who wasn't just singing, but trying to keep the memory of a lost loved one alive. This is the story of a young man named Josh Daniel. His audition on the X Factor UK became one of the most emotional moments in talent show history. Not just for the audience, but for Simon Cowell personally. Josh chose to sing Jealous by Labyrinth, but not the romantic version people know. He explained that he was singing it for his best friend, who had passed away far too young. His voice cracked when he said it. The judges listened closely. The room fell completely silent. Then he began. His voice was warm, soulful, trembling with pain. He didn't just sing the lyrics, he lived them. Every line was filled with grief, longing, love, and heartbreak. The audience watched, stunned, as Josh delivered one of the most emotional vocal performances ever seen on the show. But the camera didn't focus only on Josh. It kept cutting back to Simon. At first, Simon watched intently, eyebrows slightly furrowed. Then something changed. His eyes glistened. His jaw tightened. He sniffed quietly. He blinked more often, looking away for half a second. A small, human moment of someone trying desperately not to fall apart. Because what the audience didn't know was that Simon had recently lost his own mother. And Josh's performance, a young man singing to someone he had lost, hit Simon with a depth of emotion he wasn't prepared for. When Josh finished, the theater fell silent again. Not a single judge spoke. Not a single person moved. And Simon wiped away a tear. He couldn't speak at first. He looked down. His voice broke slightly as he finally said, "That was incredible." It is one of the few moments in television history where Simon was openly emotional, vulnerable in front of millions. And to this day, Josh Daniel's audition remains one of the most unforgettable, heartbreaking performances ever captured on camera. And now, as we bring all these stories together, we return to what truly made these moments unforgettable. Not just the performances, not just the voices, but the humanity behind each audition. What connects them is something deeper, something universal. Every one of these performers stepped on stage carrying a weight the world could not see at first. They walked in with trembling hands, heavy hearts, and dreams brighter than all the stage lights combined. But what made their moments powerful enough to crack through? Simon Cowell's famously unshakable exterior wasn't perfection. It wasn't vocal technique. It wasn't showmanship. It was honesty. It was truth. It was the bravery to stand on a stage and reveal the most vulnerable parts of themselves. Nightbirde reminded the world that hope can shine even in the darkest places, that beauty can coexist with pain, and that a fragile voice can deliver the strongest message. Her audition wasn't just music. It was a gift. It was a reminder that life, no matter how broken, can still be beautiful. Simon saw her courage, her resilience, and the light she carried. And that light moved him in a way few performers ever have. Calum Courtney showed that even a small voice can carry the weight of 1,000 emotions, that innocence and sincerity often touch the deepest parts of the human heart. Simon wasn't just listening to a child sing, he was witnessing authenticity. That simple purity was enough to soften him, enough to stir the emotions he rarely lets the world see. Courtney Hadwin's quiet, emotional return proved that strength isn't always loud. Sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is let their guard down and sing from a place of real heartbreak. Simon recognized her pain. He understood what it meant to dedicate a performance to someone you've lost. And in that moment, he wasn't a judge. He was simply a human being feeling every note. Ketterer reminded the world that love is powerful, that family is powerful, and that compassion can shape the lives of countless children. His voice told a story of a father's devotion and a heart overflowing with purpose. Simon was moved not just by the music, but by the man behind the music. His cheers that day were tears of admiration, the kind that don't come from sadness, but from profound respect. And then there was Josh Daniel, the performance that broke through every barrier Simon had. Josh's voice carried grief so raw that it filled the entire room with emotion. Every lyric was a memory, every note a goodbye. It reached a place inside Simon that was still healing from the loss of his mother, a wound too fresh to ignore. And in that moment, Simon didn't just understand the performance. He felt it, deeply, personally. That's why he cried, not as a judge, not as a television personality, but as a son missing someone he loved. These auditions remind us why millions of people tune into talent shows every year. It's not just for entertainment. It's not just for competition. It's because talent shows offer something rare. A global stage where ordinary people share extraordinary pieces of their lives. They show us that behind every voice is a story. Behind every performance is a journey. Behind every tear is a reason. Simon Cowell has earned a reputation for being tough, direct, and brutally honest. But what these 5 auditions reveal is that beneath all of that, he is someone who feels deeply. Someone who has lived through loss, love, heartbreak, and healing. Someone who recognizes the courage it takes to stand in front of the world and bare your soul. And maybe that's why we love these moments so much. Because when someone like Simon gets emotional, it reminds us that no matter how strong we try to appear, no matter how guarded we may become, music has the power to touch us all. It reaches the places we hide. It speaks the words we can't say. It heals the wounds we don't talk about. These 5 auditions didn't just make Simon emotional, they made millions emotional. They united people across countries, cultures, and languages. They reminded us that vulnerability is not weakness. It is bravery. It is humanity. Before we say goodbye, remember something important. Every person you meet is carrying a story you know nothing about. Every voice has a past. Every smile hides a battle. And every dream deserves a chance to shine. So the next time you watch a performance like these, the next time a singer stands on stage with shaking hands or a cracking voice, remember that you might be witnessing a moment that will be remembered forever. Thank you for joining Story Sprout today. Thank you for listening, feeling, and remembering why these auditions changed the world. and touched the heart of a man known for never showing his emotions. If you felt something today, if even one of these stories touched your heart, don't forget to support the channel by liking the video, sharing it with someone who needs inspiration, and subscribing for more powerful stories from around the world. Your support helps us continue telling the stories that deserve to be heard.